As I see things right now, in order to be a musical journalist or a cultural journalist writ large, you will need another source of income. That might be a side gig. I don't think it can be a business because I don't think you can do journalism and entrepreneurship concurrently, but you know, maybe someone can, I really couldn't. Or you can do what most of my colleagues do, that is be a fixer for an international publication, do some translation work, maybe do some other stuff related to publishing. And I think that's how you make a living in these here parts. Is that ideal? It certainly isn't. Does it contribute to people burning out? It certainly does. If you look at the independent journalism landscape in Romania, you will notice that not many people are over 40. Ask yourself why.
Yeah, because probably they burn out too quick. Yeah.
Or they move to a better paying job to start a family or buy a house or what have you.
I was going to ask you now, because you were mentioning this whole money thing. I know the situations are different, but I mean, Sciano, you have had 7 years to consolidate a reputation, and it's quite a good reputation. It's kind of a haven, I would say, for a certain type of creative people. How many people do you actually employ there? And this is a question for both.
Well,
I know we can compare.
Officially, there's 5 of us at the moment, but 2 of my colleagues are raising their very young children. So on a day-by-day basis at the office, there's 3 of us, me and 2 reporters, but we also work with a pool of hundreds, and I'm not blowing the number out of proportion, like hundreds of collaborators who are either reporters from different cities in Romania, or critics, or reporters at large, or scholars that also have an interest in making their research more accessible and bringing it to a broader audience. So there is 3 of us, or like
full-time.
Yeah, 3.5 as I like to put it, but there's dozens of us every month.
A big network of collaborators. Yeah. What about you?
Well, it's a bit special with Europacox because we have, of course, the event part, the project part, the media part. So it's a bit, it's a big crew actually. But for example, I'm the only in-house journalist, right? But we collaborate with many freelance journalists from all over Europe, as I got told earlier. So yeah, I don't know. But there's people working on communication. And one of them is here, actually. Social media person. Wow, but only journalists, like proper journalists, I'm the only one in-house. But yet again, as a coordinating type of work.
So 2020 was a big year for humankind. We had the COVID pandemic, and apparently we are now talking about pre-COVID times. If you remember those times, they were quite different. How did COVID affect your specific work and the scene?
I'll start with a very brief anecdote. I came here from work where we reviewed applications. We're looking for a new colleague, which is going to be a godsend. And there were quite a lot of applications that talked about the role of arts during the pandemic. Like, do we still need it? How did it help? Did it help us survive? Did it help us preserve our sanity? We as cultural journalists, did we feel like our work was relevant in that context and in the context of the ongoing war, or did we have crises of faith? I think all of these things simultaneously apply. I think it's been testing time for journalists generally. Like these past 3 years have been a whirlwind. I think those of us who chose to stay on board and keep doing the work haven't had that big of a crisis of faith yet, and still believe that it's important to get your head out of the news cycle and just read about a new book, or about a new film, or about an artist who's doing something amazing in a city that's 600 kilometers away. So that's the shortest answer I can provide.
But just a quick quick follow-up question. Was there any change in the relationship you had with the sponsor, the bank? Because you mentioned that, I'm just trying to understand the relationship you...
No, absolutely not.
Cool, so you're happy?
We have like the same number of people employed, so no. Of course, we were given the freedom to work from home, but we've already had that partially.
What about?
Well, I have two points on it. On a really, really personal level, I decided to quit my really stable journalist job 1 month before the pandemic started, which was not the best timing, really, to start as a freelance at that point. But you were talking about crisis of faith, and obviously that was a question for me, because from one day to the other I was unemployed and in lockdown, and I just didn't know what I will do with my life. But I think that when it's that much of your passion to do something, I didn't question the fact that I wanted to do that. I wanted to still write about music and discover new artists. And actually during lockdown I listened to so much music all day long, because one, there was nothing else to do, and second, because it's good to have something to go when everything is kind of shitty outside, to something that you really love. And I think that applies to a lot of different situations, and much worse situation than a pandemic, but more, of course. So yeah, on the personal level, I did not have a crisis of faith. It just made sure that I really, really wanted to do that. And I'm lucky enough to have been born in France, where you are massively helped by the government in those kind of times. So that's the lucky part. On a more on a bigger scale, and I'm not talking about Europabox, because we're talking about how Europabox is funded. It's a little bit special and different. But for most music publication in France, they're independent, small businesses, with not a lot of money, even before the pandemic. And this money comes from ads. Ads that are bought by festivals, venues, labels, record labels. Festivals during the pandemic, they didn't buy any ads. Same for venues, and record labels were kind of struggling as well. So the pandemic has had a big impact on the music publications, because the main source of revenue was shut down.
So how did you manage? With this loss?
Well, badly. No, there's actually quite a few magazines that just stopped or went full online, which is not a really sustainable business model, because now that festivals are again buying ads, they're not really into buying banners and stuff like that on websites, because they don't feel it's as passive as a printed issue. And also, they much rather spend money on sponsored posts on social media, or on campaigns on Spotify or other socials, so that the money that was before allocated to the press, the independent press, is now going to Google, Amazon, GAFAM. I don't know if you say that in English or in Romanian as well. GAFAM, Google, Amazon, Facebook. What's the other A? Apple.
Microsoft.
And Microsoft. So those big companies that don't pay that much of taxes.
So the rich are getting richer as well.
And they're getting richer. So that money that was before going to independent media is flying away to those big companies. So COVID had a real impact to that. And actually in France we just an association of a group of independent editors of music magazine has just been formed, and are pleading to the government to give them some sort of help, money, preferable, because we have that thing that you get help from the French government when you are a media, but only if you cover politics or current affairs, like normal news stuff, but culture, not only music, culture in general. No, there's no funding. There's no public funding for them at all.
And did this work? I mean, these people organize themselves and
yeah, they did, and they published their first monthly, like official stuff, like this month or next week. But it's like happening right now, so we'll see.
Interesting. Yeah, okay, let's talk a bit about the, I mean, you know, we had this thing in the pandemic and in the war in Romania as well, where the government issued out, I mean, poured a lot of money into the press, as you say, the general press. I'm sure you weren't one of the receivers because...
We didn't apply, because we didn't feel it was ethical to do so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Because of the background.
I mean, there are other publications, including DOR, who has since succumbed, who are in much more dire need of money.
Yeah, but also the ethical issue was that it was seen kind of a bribery, right, from the point of view of the journalist. I mean, we, the government, we give you money, so maybe if you write badly about us, maybe we won't give you the money anymore. So a lot of big media, they received a lot of money, but you didn't even apply, so I think that's good. I don't know if it's good actually, but yeah. Let's talk a bit about the public-funded cultural journalism, because recently in Romania we have TVR Cultural, the branch of the National Public Television, the cultural branch, who recently started...
Came back from the dead?
Came back, yeah, resurrected, is now resurrected, and apparently the feedback is quite decent. I don't know if you have watched the shows or if you know.
I did.
How many of you actually watched TVR Cultural? Let's see, just a quick... Ever, no, like, yeah, ever, okay, ever, okay. So why did you stop? I don't know, that's an interesting question. But the role, I mean, we don't pay taxes, right? This money, it goes to the state budget and then it trickles down to culture, which is always kind of the Cinderella, I would say, of the, I mean, it's hard to compete when you have a lot of expenditure in health and education and, well, also defense now. But still, how do you see? Do you see the role of the state as being a strong one in financing? Do you think it's a good thing? Should we have more? Because my question is related to another question, and it's about the basically market economy and the supply and demand. So, I mean, should we force this kind of? Do people actually even need cultural journalism? I don't want to.
Look, I believe in a state that steps in and intervenes, and I don't believe art and culture should exist for profit. Full stop. That being said, a brief look at the cultural landscape in Romania, the one that's state-funded is going to be a pretty bleak look. It doesn't apply in all cases. There are, for instance, state-funded movie theaters and state-funded theaters and museums which are doing a great job and look amazing and up-to-date, and they're putting out, their output is contemporary.
And without this funding, they would probably vanish.
They would totally vanish and lots of people would be out of a job. That said, there are a lot of ossified, calcified, stuck in time institutions. There are a lot of conflicts in state-funded cultural institutions. That's a huge talking point. To pedal back, I do think that a state that is more efficient than ours should fund the arts and should fund cultural journalism. As I was saying earlier, I do think, and I have to believe this, you know, because I have to keep doing my job. I do believe that it's important to be able to read about, on the one hand, stuff that's not about COVID, but on the other hand, stuff that's about the intersection between COVID and culture. How is COVID impacting independent artists? How are they surviving? What are music festivals and film festivals going to do? So,
are we banning Russian culture now and Belarusian culture, or now with the war and all kinds of questions? What about France? What do you think? I mean, I know you have a different thing going on.
Yeah, we're traditionally a really public-funded society.
Exactly.
We pay the taxes for it. It's not a gift. It's just the way it's working. people sometimes forget a little bit about that. It's not a gift, we actually paid for it at the beginning. Anyway. But this funding really applies to venues and museum, and you were talking also about movie theater, and that works quite well because it's not made for profit, as you said. I completely agree with that. And we have a lot of museums or venues that couldn't exist before this funding. But it doesn't apply to cultural journalism, which is quite a mystery for us, but hopefully that will change. It applies to festivals, and traditionally the majority of the French festivals are mainly public funded, but with no obligation of saying good stuff about the government during the festivals. You know, on the contrary, it's mostly places of counterculture, and militancy. I'm listening. English, sorry.
It happens here in the French Institute.
Okay, yes. And but it doesn't apply to music journalism. So yep, that's the problem. But there's way to go around that, to be full private as most publications. We also have quite a lot of brands investing, but to do their own platform. For example, I've worked for 2 years for a music platform that was completely financed by Heineken, which was called Green Room. Doesn't really exist anymore. But I didn't talk about beer at all, and actually it was illegal for me to talk about beer because the target was young people, and I think it's the same here. You can sell beer to 16 years old something. So yeah, there's those two kind of things, and also little special project as Europa, which is mainly funded by Europe Creative, which is a program of the European Union. But on the national scale, you don't have like states magazine, doesn't exist. Every publication is held by the government except cultural one. And as everybody is held on the same scale, you don't have any obligation to be nice to the government or something because it's for everybody the same.
I mean, here it's not as well written a contract, I assume, when...
No, of course, but even like in a practical way,
so there's no pressure.
There's no pressure. Of course, there's right-wing magazine, left-wing magazine. I don't say that objectivity is a goal. It's not at all. But it's not a pressure that is really that impactful, at least in Britain journalism. TV is quite different this time.
We also have the national radio, and they have again a decent station, Radio Romania Cultural. I was also there in their morning show for more than 1 year every week, and I remember that there was a bit of pressure and talks. Maybe we don't talk about this. So, but anyway, going back to our talking points, let's talk a bit about the format, because we were discussing while preparing this talk. There was that song with the video, Radio Star, and we have the channels. What do you call them? What's the acronym? GAFAM. We have GAFAM, and yeah, we're giving them a lot of credit, and we are obeying, and we are all under their big crowns. So what has changed since you started 7 years ago? Because I think it was a bit different, not very different, but I think that things only exacerbated. Yeah, they only got a bit more. I mean, you remember, well, we know each other a while, and when we were, I don't know, in our 20s, I would say, the media landscape, the independent media landscape was quite fragmented. You could find alternative blogs, magazines, websites, and now we have Facebook events. And we find out about events from Facebook events, right? And we don't have reviews anymore, except probably also some posts written on Facebook, or some Facebook groups, Channel or a couple of other outlets. So how do you adapt to this new landscape, and how does this new landscape look like? Or am I just feeling it wrong, or are you also feeling it, I don't know, changing?
I feel like there's been an infinite amount of talk in international journalism circles about the death of the long form, the death of slow journalism, the death of perhaps, I don't know, the way search engine algorithms are helping us because of AI. Let's not forget that our robot overlords are also on their way.
They're waiting at the door.
Yeah. That, of course, was not an issue 7 years ago. I feel like people tend to get scared a lot. Scared of algorithms, scared of social networks, scared of AI. Some of those fears are obviously well-founded. But the truth is that we don't know. I cannot predict what's gonna work or be in, or what's next after TikTok and Be Real and whatnot. And maybe we should do journalism in Stardew Valley or some other game. I have no idea. There's a bit of trial and error to it. Like you try to have a decent standing on Facebook. You try to do some decent human optimization so that the search engines will pick you up. You maybe even try to start a TikTok channel. We haven't yet because we're a bit too old for that. We're looking for someone younger to help us out with that. Soon, yes. So you try, but you stay true to what you know how to do and you know how to do well. I think it would be completely ridiculous and cringe to borrow from our younger colleagues to start doing 30-second explainers for Stanano. I mean, I can't do that. If I can find someone who can and who is aligned with what we want to do and want to keep doing, we'll do that. So I think it's a mix of having a healthy dose of skepticism towards new technologies, but also trying to see what they can do for you, but just sticking to your course. What can we do? Long form and slow journalism. How can we do better to bring it to our audiences? Where are our audiences?
So you're still doing the long form.
Yeah.
But the long form is getting a bit shorter, maybe.
I think the way in which you package the long form is changing because the core is going to be the same. And the core has stayed the same in this profession for, quite a big chunk of time. There are people going out in the field, finding interesting people to talk to, bringing that back into the newsroom, writing it or, editing it. And then the way you just maybe choose to take it to Instagram. That's obviously a new development.
So what's your main channel, basically? Is it still Facebook?
Unfortunately it is. Unfortunately, we're still kind of married to it. We get a big chunk of our traffic there, but we have a newsletter that brings quite a decent amount of traffic. We have a surprisingly high rate of people who just check the main page, the homepage, like on a daily or semi-daily basis, which is really cool.
I do that.
We're on Telegram, we're on Instagram, we
Not
are
on TikTok.
not yet. We are in as many places as we can be for a 3-person team.
You do also Facebook or Instagram ads to get the content across?
We used to, but we decided that it's not worth botching the algorithm, teaching it that you're going to insert more coin and then you're going to have to insert more and more and more and more. So I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that sort of amplification, personally.